Come on.
The film opens with a dream sequence of a man being dragged off a yacht and into the ocean. Suddenly the waters recede and Lincoln wakes up from his recurring nightmare. He exits his room to a group of citizens dressed the same and they get on an elevator together, when the community announcer comes on screen to present Starkweather as the latest winner of the lottery. He's been randomly chosen to live on the island, known to be the last place on Earth free of a deadly pathogen that wiped out all life. Starkweather's only been there 6 months, which angers Gondu, who's been there 7 years, while Lincoln himself has been there for 3. Gondu's outbursts noticed by the facility, who sends 2 officers to meet him as he exits the lift. He's clearly terrified of them and assures them that he's calmed down before being let go about his business. Despite being treated well enough, Link's growing sick of the daily regimen and asks the nutritionist for something better, but she dispenses oatmeal onto his tray just like the computer recommends. His best friend Jordan shows him how it's done, and after sweet-talking the nutritionist, she obtains a few rashers of bacon which she shares with him, when a supervisor reminds them of the proximity rules between male and female citizens. Because of his nightmares, Link visits the compound's therapist to discuss them. Dr. Merrick tasks him with drawing the boat from his dream, which he does so complete with the name on the side. He takes Link into a back room and inserts tiny robots that crawl into his sockets to run sensors for the next 24 hours. Now with an irritated eye, Lincoln goes to the work center where he injects nutrients into feeding tubes with Jones. Gondu points out a new citizen to them and wonders how they keep finding new survivors. The decontamination process forces them to relearn motor skills, which Gondu amuses himself with by tormenting the newcomer. Just then a pregnant woman begins going into labor, and with it being the only other way to gain access to the island, Lima's cheerfully taken away to paradise. Pretending the computers crashed to obtain a key to a restricted area, Link visits technician Mac, who he's developed a friendship with over the years. During their discussion, Mac calls Merrick's arrogance a god complex, but Link has no clue what god even is. Just then Mac gets called away, but Lincoln decides to stay, when a flying insect enters the compound thought to have gone extinct with everything else. He catches it in a matchbox that he takes from the desk and smuggles it into his bedroom to admire. We leave Link and follow Mac into production to repair a machine, where a group of workers prepare to remove a human from a plastic pod. Mac watches disturbed as they remove a fully grown man and begin to prepare him for integration into the rest of society. Once they're sure that the product's healthy, the camera pans through a window revealing dozens of humans all in different stages of the creation process. It continues through the chamber into the workstation, revealing the feeding tubes to actually be nutrients for the pods. As entertainment, the citizens gather round as Lincoln and Jordan battle in a simulated Xbox product placement, with Jordan winning. She tells Link that his face gives him away and she can always tell when he's lying. After telling her about the insect and his theory that the new arrivals are a result of something sinister, the lottery begins and everyone stops to watch a nearby monitor. Coincidentally, the winner's Jordan. So that night Link uses the borrowed key to sneak through the compound back to the restricted area. After releasing the insect, he follows it up a ladder into a hallway in the medical sector. He finds a nurse's apron and uses it to walk straight past doctors and into the lab, finding Lima having just given birth to a healthy girl. In a dark turn of events, the nurse straps Lima down and injects air into her drip, resulting in her painful death as the baby's taken and presented to its new mother. Unable to have a child of her own, the woman used Lima to carry the baby before her untimely termination. In another operating room, Starkweather's on a table where a team's attempting to remove an organ. The man's the clone of a famous athlete who needs a new liver to survive and is here to provide that. Due to his massive size, the sedatives fall short and he wakes up mid-operation in a panic. He pushes past everyone in a desperate attempt to escape the facility, but is brought down by small harpoon guns and dragged back screaming past a horrified Link. Lincoln runs straight back the way he came and through the off-limits female quarters to save Jordan. He drags her by the wrist through the compound and tries to explain to her what he saw while trying to get her out. Though he doesn't know why they were killed, he just knows that the lottery winners are taken to the medical lab, not the island. Merrick's in the security room going over the footage of Starkweather when noticing the citizen's bracelet on a nurse's wrist. He narrows it down to Link and has the community announcer declare him to be contaminated to the public. The 2 fugitives avoid the guards' harpoons and flee into the restricted area, where they come to a dead end. When the guards approach, Link manages to take out 2 with his surroundings, but when he's almost killed by a third, Jordan blindsides him with a wrench. They climb into a vent but fall through it into a vast chamber, the facility's conditioning room, where newly extracted clones are brainwashed into believing their destiny is to go to the island. Security catches up, but they make it onto an elevator and outside of the compound. The horizon transforms into a massive facility, having just been a projected hologram, and when they finally complete their run down a long underground corridor, they emerge from a silo in the desert. Afterwards, propaganda says that Link was captured and Jordan transferred to the island, while Jones is shown to have grown curious enough to begin asking questions.
Where do all the tubes go?
Dr. Merrick's revealed to be the owner of the bioengineering facility himself, where he creates identical clones of clients should they have any need for them. He shows off a pulsing meat sack and falsely claims to a tour group that they never achieve consciousness, and insists that they are just products before handing them over to Relations Director Mr. Whitman. Merrick brings in the head of a private security firm named Albert. He explains his company's secret that without consciousness the organs simply couldn't survive, and tasks Albert with finding the two escapees, with Jordan as the priority as her sponsors in desperate need of organs. Meanwhile, Lincoln and Jordan take shelter for the night and are woken in the morning by a motorcycle riding by. Recognizing the road sign from the matchbox taken from Mac's workshop, they follow the road to the Aces and Spades bar. Inside they find Mac enjoying his day off and demand answers, so he takes them back to his place where he divulges to them the truth. He explains that wealthy people are willing to pay anything to extend their lifespans, and that their sponsors pay for their existence but have no clue of their sentience and just assume they're a blob of flesh in a container. They decide that their best bet's to locate their sponsors and spread the truth about Merrick's atrocities. They're given a change of clothes and taken to a train station planning to visit Lincoln's sponsor in Los Angeles. Due to the nanorobots which Lincoln's only now just passing, Albert's team tracks them down to the station and begins searching the area. The moment one knows he's been made by Mac, he shoots him dead in the chest, sending his body over the railing. The copies take off running and take shelter in a tool shed, and when one of Albert's men attempts to get in, Jordan sends several nails through his hand and they make it onto the train before it departs. Lincoln and Jordan make it to the near-future version of Los Angeles, and pass a large Calvin Klein advertisement revealing Jordan to be a model named Sarah. They search for their sponsors on a public computer, but only Sarah Jordan's listed out of the two. When they call her home, a young boy picks up and is confused as he thinks he's speaking with his mother, but she's in the hospital waiting on organs after surviving a car crash. Using Mac's credit card history, Albert tracks the two down, then picks them up on the city's cameras. He makes his move, but the local police intercept and arrest the two as suspects in Mac's murder. An officer brings up Link's file revealing the unlisted address of his sponsor, when suddenly an armored truck tears the cop car in half. The two clones survive and jump on the back of an automated truck heading out of town. With Albert's men still in pursuit, they begin releasing the payload, sending train axles ripping through mercenaries' vehicles. The one vehicle able to avoid them is an aerial bike that opens fire on the truck, forcing it to a halt. As it goes for another pass, Link clotheslines the gunner, sending the bike crashing into a road sign. Before the police catch up, Lincoln and Jordan board the bike and take off through the streets, eventually weaving through elevated trains and causing a second aerial bike to crash. Not able to control it properly, Lincoln crashes through a tower building and the two tumble out the back onto its logo. It rips from the side of the building and destroys Albert's Black Hawk as the logo rains down in flaming debris on the city. Lincoln and Jordan get caught up in some scaffolding nets on the way down and are saved from any harm. Meanwhile, back at the Institute, Merrick discovers that all of Lincoln's generation of clones are beginning to get inquisitive, when Gandu confides in who he thinks is just a regular therapist that something's off with the lottery. The Institute's owner distracts him with small talk, then sticks a needle in his neck with a fatal injection. The incubation chief brings urgent news and shows Merrick that the citizens are developing their sponsors' memories. The next day the clones reach Lincoln's sponsor's house and the automated systems allow him to walk straight in. They locate a model of the boat from Lincoln's dreams, which we know now to be memories, when his sponsor Tom attacks them with a golf club, assuming them intruders. He freezes in shock to see himself looking back at him, then when everything calms down he removes their bracelets. Unlike Lincoln, Tom speaks with a Scottish accent and made his fortune designing speedboats. He explains that he has a disease that requires him to get a new liver within the next 2 years, which was his reason for joining Merrick's program. Trying to come up with a plan, Lincoln sees the president on TV addressing the masses and decides they'll try get the message out through a broadcast. Tom agrees to help, but when he goes upstairs he immediately calls the Merrick Institute's reception. Luckily, when he comes back down, Jordan recognizes he's lying, having spent enough time around his clone. She decides to stay behind while Tom lets Lincoln drive his sports car to the television station. At a set of lights, Albert's Black Hawk suddenly shows up as Tom pulls a gun on his clone, saying that he's not ready to die. Saying the feeling is mutual, Lincoln floors it straight under the chopper and down the highway. After wrestling for control, they pull over at an abandoned building and exit the car, still fighting, when Tom gets the upper hand with his pistol as Albert enters the building. Lincoln begins imitating his sponsor's accent and slaps his bracelet on Tom's wrist, giving Albert the go-ahead to shoot the wrong man dead. The new Tom tells Albert that Jordan went out of town looking for her own sponsor, then when he gets home he's greeted by a gun to the face, but Jordan can instantly tell it's Lincoln. The next day he receives a call from Whitman apologizing for the incident and saying that half the clones have all been recalled. Merrick's discovered multiple generations have neural patterns like Lincoln, and therefore he's disposing of half the population. Knowing they need to do something about it, Jordan gets herself flagged using Mac's credit card and captured by Albert to gain access back into the Institute. Lincoln disguised as Tom makes his way by private chopper where he's met in a waiting room by Whitman. Thinking he's come back for a new clone, Lincoln suddenly knocks Whitman unconscious as Jordan's laid out on a surgery table scheduled to have her organs removed. She pulls a pistol out from between her thighs and shoots the security agent in the leg, then takes his key and a doctor's coat before meeting back up with Lincoln. Finding the first batch of clones being taken away for recall, Lincoln takes the key to security in an attempt to turn off the hologram and reveal the truth to the prisoners. Albert meets with Merrick to collect his check and learns that Sarah probably won't survive the car crash, but they're killing Jordan and taking her organs anyway. The native of Burkina Faso tells of how his father's rebellion failed and how they were all branded to think they were less than human, then asks Merrick when did killing become a business for him. The angry doctor is convinced that he isn't taking lives, that he's giving it, and when he asks who else can say that, Albert sarcastically says only him and God, knowing that's what he wants to hear. Soon the coroner notices that Link's wristband's on the wrong arm and informs Merrick. Jordan follows a group of clones who believe they've won a mass lottery and all get to go to the island, but are instead loaded into a giant furnace to be incinerated. Albert catches her but decides to help, and the two stop the guards, allowing Jones and the other copies to escape. Lincoln makes it to the reactor for the hologram illusion, but when he overloads it he's shot by Merrick with a mini harpoon. They begin to battle through the reactor chamber as the fan begins surging out of control. On a walkway, Merrick gets the upper hand and puts his weapon down to strangle Lincoln, but Link grabs it and fires a dart straight into Merrick's throat. The turbine fans break loose from the reactor, collapsing through the walkway and leaving Merrick hanging by his neck. He dies as Lincoln climbs up the cable, and with the holographic grid destroyed, the clones are exposed to sunlight for the first time ever. Hundreds of copies begin running down the corridor towards the exit and emerge into the outside world. After finding each other in the sea of white jumpsuits and giving Albert a look of gratitude, Link takes Jordan and the boat from his dreams to begin their new life. And the movie ends.
You know, when you want something really bad and you close your eyes and you wish for it, God's the guy that ignores you.
So you made it. I appreciate your time. I couldn't have done it without you. Tell your mother I said thanks.